Oh, you've got G. Okay. Me neither. I never had it. So this weekend, I'm going to. Yeah, I got it. So parking starting with.
Going to call the meeting of the Traffic and Parking Commission to order. Let the record reflect that all commissioners are present. And the first thing and most important thing we're going to do is the Pledge of Allegiance, to be led by Commissioner Bill Walk.
Supposed to be.
Oh, is it your turn?
Oh, it's my turn.
How you do it?
Okay, sure. I just want to say, Chair, Vice Chair.
I don't have my cheat sheet with me.
My
that's why.
fellow commissioners and everybody here, that's my first time to lead the Pledge of Allegiance as a in the public meeting. As an immigrant, it's an honor and privilege. Thank you. You all know the drill here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job. So the next item on our agenda is public comment. So public comment is for items that are not on the agenda. If you want to speak to something on the agenda, you need to fill out the blue card and turn your name in and speak and put down what agenda item you want to speak to. So is there any public comment on non-agenda items?
We have a few different cards, but there are for agenda item number 5.
Okay. So we'll get to agenda item 5 soon. So next item on the agenda is the consent calendar.
I'm sorry, there was one, she's still filling it out.
I'm so sorry. I'm new to all of these proceedings, so I.
Oh, it's okay.
Did you want to talk about it?
No, this is regarding the potential for permit parking.
Oh, sure. Just give your name and,
Sure. My name is Shannon Strasberg. I'm a more recent resident to Lake Forest. We bought a house in Lobo Drive. And several months ago, some of our neighbors were starting to circulate around our neighborhood with a concern that I share, which is we have a lot of overflow parking in our neighborhood.
and where is that?
That is 24812 Lobo Drive. So we're right at Muirlands and El Toro. So off of Tulip and Muirlands. There is a large, I believe it's a condo community or a townhome community, and we get a lot of overflow parking into our neighborhood. I have 4 young children, and one of the considerations for moving into Lake Forest was this seemed like such a wonderful family environment. And, since we moved in, we're very happy. We do see a lot of extra traffic, a lot of extra foot traffic. We're seeing a lot of these people in these overflow cars sitting in their cars for extended periods of time, loud music, things of that nature. And as a mother of young children that want to be outside, this is concerning that there is all of this extra traffic. So I feel very strongly that I would like this to become a permitted parking area. I know that many of my neighbors feel similarly, and I signed the petition and received a letter in the mail saying that my street did not obtain enough signatures. So some of our cross streets had, but my street did not. So I intend this weekend to go and obtain additional signatures, hopefully from my direct neighbors, to hopefully affect change in this regard.
Good. Okay. Did you have a question? Sure.
I have a specific what is the worst time that you think you see these issues in your neighborhood?
I'm seeing them, I get home usually in the evening anywhere between 4 and 6, and it's from about 6 p.m. through the next morning, really.
And any specific day of the week?
It seems to be more prevalent on the weekends, but every weeknight is also very inundated
Okay,
with
thank you very much.
electric cars.
So David Loeb, was that the street that was just recently that
Correct. We received a petition that included a significant number of residents from Lavaca and a small number from the side streets. And so once we analyzed the petition, we realized that the side streets did not meet the minimum 50% support criteria for us to conduct the study. So we sent letters to the individual residents or property owners on the side streets, letting them know that if they wanted to be included, we would need some additional signatures. We actually received one from one of the streets today, and obviously it sounds like we'll probably get the at least another street. We wanted to give them an opportunity because we wanted to study the whole neighborhood as a
Yeah,
whole,
good
because
idea.
we realized that the residents who were here at the last meeting were speaking from each of the individual streets, and we wanted to make sure that we give them an opportunity to be included in the current study.
Okay, good.
And my concern is is also due to the fact that some of the other streets do seem to have met the minimum criteria. So now my concern is if those streets go to permit parking, I expect my street would become that much more impacted if we are not as
That's
part
very
of it.
possible,
So
yes.
I'm definitely going to see what I can do there.
Okay, thank you.
very much.
Any others? Nope. Okay,
Just item 5.
next item on the agenda, these are consent calendar items, these are routine items. The commission considers every month the minutes, schedules of agenda item meetings, those kind of things. Is there anything that Commissioner would like to pull for discussion? Hearing none, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar items?
Motion.
Motion by
Second.
Director Commissioner Pequeno, seconded by Commissioner Yu. Please vote. The motion passes unanimously. That was easy. Next and last item on our agenda, the most important one, is the information on accessible audible pedestrian signals. So just for everybody in the audience, please note that this is an educational item for the commission. We're not here to make any decisions on getting an intersection done. We don't have any authority to spend any money to do that anyway. That's the city council's prerogative. So this is for us, how does it work, what does it do, that kind of thing, and we've received a report. And Mr. Rogers, would you like to make any comments on the report you gave us first?
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, perhaps because we do have a significant audience here tonight, I can just give a brief summary of what we have before you tonight. So as the chairman indicated, this is informational, but perhaps educational for everybody. So if you wouldn't mind, I'll just give a little short synopsis of what's in the report for you tonight. Audible or accessible pedestrian signals, otherwise known as APS, are devices that allow visually impaired individuals to access and cross at signalized intersections. It can provide information about the existence and location of the push buttons, the beginning of the walk interval, direction of the crosswalk and location of the destination curb, intersection names, both in Braille, raised print, and through speech messages. And intersection signalization can even be part of a speech message if you set it up that way. It can also give you information through maps or tactile maps and diagrams as how an intersection is actually set up if it's an unusual intersection. The benefits of these systems have been found, including more accurate judgments at the onset of the walk interval, reduction in crossing beginning during the don't walk portion of it, reduced delay, significantly more crossings completed before the signal changes in the opposite direction, and sighted pedestrians are also have been found to begin crossing faster because they have the audible portion of the walk is given to them as well as the visual. The systems have been around in some form for about 25 years, but they're still not commonplace. Most agencies to this day still do not install them as part of new installations. We generally put them in or receive requests for them and study them as part of individual requests. Some of the reasons it's probably not put in as a standard. Some of the ideas associated with that, or there's some disagreement among the blind community on the need for and effectiveness of these devices. There are concerns about noise pollution and the consequent community opposition, and the cost of installation and maintenance of the units. In the past 10 years or so, intersection design and signalizations have affected our traditional crossings. If you think of things like roundabouts now, very different intersection design than the traditional signal. And so some of these issues are also in play here when it comes to the use of these particular devices. The most current ones that we would spec out, I know that cities around us have installed, do use audible indications to pedestrians, as well as tactile information, as well as push button locator tones. So all of the things I discussed previously are generally included in what I'll call the modern state-of-the-art systems. They tend to cost, based on current installations that are going on, particularly in the city of Tustin. For full intersection installations, they run about $15,000 to $20,000 per intersection. And so that cost is a retrofit cost associated with pretty much any of the intersections that we have out there today. As we've noticed in previous discussions, the city does not have any systems at any of our 91 intersections at this time. Also, as part of our most recent two-year CIP and in any carryover or leftover projects from previous capital improvement programs, we do not have any funding set aside for these types of systems. I did want to note that as part of a follow-up discussion to this item internally to staff, we think, but it's a process to get there, but we think we might be able to use a small amount of money that we get from a federal community development block grant, which we currently use to install handicap ramps. That's possible that some of that money could potentially be used for an installation. The amount of money is relatively small, around $100,000, and believe it or not, we have to spend a whole bunch of that on administering the program. So the net out of that isn't very much, but we're going to be looking into that, but that would have to be something that the council would have to look at, as well as our consultants that help us kind of navigate the federal guidelines when it comes to spending that money. But I did want to point out that staff is continuing to look at this. We do obviously have a request from one of our individuals here in the audience, one of our residents, to look at some intersections, and we have worked with her on a priority list, and we're still awaiting a cost estimate on the one intersection that was identified as kind of the top priority. So that's kind of where we're at. That's the basic information on these systems, and staff is available to answer any questions you might have.
And that top intersection was,
You're going to put me on the spot. I believe it was El Toro at Muralins. I do know it was on El Toro, and again, I apologize for not knowing it off the top of my head here, but we can certainly check back on the list and with our resident to make sure that is still the one that would be of most importance at this time.
Cool. Before we get to public comment, do we have any commissioner questions? Robert?
Now, Dave, I know you brought up grant money. Have we looked at to see if there's any other types of grants out there that can help fund this?
There's always opportunities out there, so we could certainly look and see what might be available. Most cities still just fund these as part of their, I'll call them their general fund capital improvement projects. It may be eligible for gas tax, I don't know, but most cities like us currently spend that mostly on paving projects and other rehabilitation projects. But it's worth looking at some of the opportunities out there. The CDBG one seems to be the most likely in a shorter term.
Questions?
Hey, Dave, how much the ongoing maintenance cost?
Well, typically, traffic signal maintenance in general, the 91 signals that we own and operate cost us about $330,000 a year to just maintain. So fractionally, it's not going to be much. However, these systems have a history and a reputation for needing a lot of ongoing maintenance. Unlike a lot of things that you can set and forget, these do need to be part of not only your monthly inspection, but it is our understanding that they also need a lot of typically need a lot of additional kind of maintenance reviews beyond the typical once a month that we do for all of our signals. So
There's more stuff.
it's a lot of things to go wrong with the PED push button indicators, the voice systems. There's a lot of things going on with this system, and you obviously, for all the right reasons, you want to make sure this operates at its best at all times. And so, as a result, they do seem to require more than typical maintenance for other traffic signal components.
Got you. You got a ballpark number there?
I mean, if you had to put out an extra visit per intersection, it costs us about $150 for every time somebody shows up out there with a truck to look at an issue. So, if you had to do an extra visit at one intersection, that's 12 extra times. That's $1,800 a year per intersection. Would probably not be an unreasonable number to look at in terms of if you wanted to kind of get a feel for what it might cost extra to keep an eye and make sure these systems are operating appropriately.
I got another question here. It seems the funding is probably a little bit sticking point here. So it's also possible it can go through some kind of private funding, private nonprofit contribution there, if somebody seriously want to fund.
I've never heard of that, but I'm not saying it's not possible. I mean, I don't Tom's world, but I'm sure cities have occasionally received endowments or grants or something from a benefactor of some sort for specific reasons, and obviously that would have to go through a council and the city manager to see about that. But I suppose we certainly wouldn't say no, but we would have to look at it very carefully.
Okay, thank you.
Jordan?
Yeah, in the staff report, it mentions that we were working with a resident to develop a priority list. Has that been received yet?
It has.
Okay.
From our resident that was here at our last meeting. She also lives on Lavaca, so she was here to speak about the permit parking issue also. But yes, we have received that list. That is what directed us to get a quote on the number one priority on that list. But we would want to check back with her to see if the priorities may have changed. But the first one is just get a ballpark figure for our city to install one.
And
Which will
how
help
many
kind of
how
guide
many
us.
were listed on there? Do you recall? Was it a
We
handful?
asked for the top 5, and
Okay.
we did get 5.
Okay.
And all of them were kind of in that El Toro, Rockfield, general vicinity in that area.
Okay. And then on the maintenance cost, that estimation, is that for staff time that's already funded, or would that be an additional cost for a consultant or some firm that actually inspects these?
It would be our signal maintenance contractor.
Okay.
We every month we have a bill for what we call routine maintenance. And with routine maintenance, they go out to every intersection, just check everything out, make sure everything's working the way it is. If they find anything, that's an extra cost. But at that inspection once a month is covered by that. If they need to come out at any period other than that, is a separate one-time cost and typically costs us about $150 per visit per intersection.
Okay. And outside of Tustin, that's trying to get there with these pedestrian audible crosswalks, is there any other cities in Orange?
I am not aware of any other city in Orange County that is taking the same approach that Tustin has. It is, in my experience and understanding with my peers, that most cities continue to do what we in Lake Forest continue to do, and is that kind of on a request basis we will review particular locations. Tustin is unique in that they had a similar request or a couple of requests. I think they even had something to do with the blind community, the visually impaired community within the city. And they had requested, with that particular organization, had requested some intersections around there. And at the time, and this was a few years ago, the council made a decision to do a long-term funding program where they do, I think, about 10
So it was a phased process.
10 a year in order, and it's a, God, I want to see a 10-year program to get them to have all of their intersections with the system. But it's a very long-range program. And as far as I know, they are the only city that has adopted that approach.
Okay, that's all.
So we had somebody come a few months ago, may have been last year, about the blinking light sidewalk or crosswalk. Is this related to that? Is it the same thing? Is it different? Are they combined?
No, I'd have to go back in my memory banks. But anytime we talk about flashing beacons or flashing crosswalks, that's a very different issue. That's to highlight someone crossing what is typically an uncontrolled crosswalk that doesn't have a stop sign or a signal. We have a couple of different systems for that. I believe that was what that was related to.
Right.
It, and not
I think it was too. Just want to make sure. Anybody else?
One more here.
One more question?
Yeah, the $15,000 to $20,000 is the retrofit cost. So generally speaking, how much additional cost is gonna be compared to a regular crosswalk from a long-term perspective?
Well, I mean, I would compare it to like a new installation versus a retrofit. The components are the most expensive part, and then followed by the labor. You probably would save a little bit because you don't have to pull in some extra wires after the fact, but I would have to believe that the cost to install it with a new installation would not be significantly different than this, perhaps a couple $1,000s cheaper. But in general, it's really the equipment cost is very expensive, as well as some specialty installation that has to occur.
So what's the life cycle of a crosswalk?
Wow. They've been around, these particular systems we're putting in have been around for, well, I know they've been around for at least 5 years, because that's how long I've been here. I don't know. Typical systems like that are as complex as that, I think you would be lucky to get about a 10-year life cycle out of them before you'd have to replace them.
So let's say this way, if we put things on the agenda for long-term planning, it's possible we can just get the things for the next installations with a little more maintenance cost there.
Well, I think part of this, obviously we don't have, you have reviewed a capital improvement program last time. That was a 2-year program that you reviewed not long ago. Every 2 years, the city does a new capital improvement program. And so it certainly can be something that can be included on your list of potential projects for recommendation to the council at that time. What we're talking about now is to try to see if we can find some money now,
Got you.
potentially to do at least an intersection.
Like a pilot program?
Some sort of a pilot program. See if we can get something going before this next 2-year cycle in direct response to the resident that has approached us.
But we don't want to get out in front of city council, and there's other things that we staff can't do, nor the commission can do. So we don't want to speak for them, right? But it's something that we need to get more facts. We need to get a cost estimate. We need to get a plan and understand the process and what it is, and then we can move forward and make some decisions.
All right, thank you.
I definitely like the effort by staff that you guys are going forward and listening, taking their 5 top priorities, seeing what we can do, exploring the grant option with the community block. I think that's outstanding, and that's a great response for the residents' needs. I think as an individual, I would like to see when these crossing signals are changed out, kind of where Commissioner Yu was going with it, that we could possibly look to replace and fund in a long-term planning that we replace them with these types of systems, because I think it's extremely important and something that I hold a value, that it should be accessible for everybody. And I think that should be a goal of every city, not just our city, but cities nationwide, especially when you replace them, that you spend a little bit more money because the outcome is so important. And that's just my opinion that I wanted to share.
Okay, so now let's go to public comment. So when your name is called, please come up to the microphone, give your name and what street you live on. You have 3 minutes to talk, and a green light will go on when you start, and about 15 or 20 seconds.
Or we'll let them know.
About 15 or 20 seconds till the yellow light will go on. That means you're almost done. And the red light goes on. That means your time is up. So,
I'll make a noise when those lights come on.
yeah.
Our first speaker is Mary Jo Egas, followed by Tina Wilson.
I'm Mary Jo Egas, and I am a volunteer guide dog for the Vine puppy raiser. And I would like my fellow puppy raisers to at least stand.
Is the mic on? Excuse me. Is that microphone on?
Yes.
It is now.
Okay, I am a volunteer puppy raiser for Guide Dogs for the Blind, along with all of my compadres here. And we actually meet at Abiding Savior Lutheran Church, and that is where we train. So we are walking these puppies, usually at night, along El Toro Road. We do not cross for various reasons. We actually have a puppy here that we raised in our group who is now a working guide. And the young man here is Jeff Sinji, and he has Waldorf, who was an 8-week-old puppy that came to our group. We raised it until he became 16 months. We sent him off to Guide Dogs for the Blind for his formal training, and then was matched with Jeff. And then they trained and became a partner. And that happened about 3 years ago? 3 years ago? Yeah. So we're here to show our support to the community that we support by giving them their freedom and a set of eyes. And knowing how electric cars are so quiet, and knowing how much we love the puppies that we pass on, we would love to know that they are safe in every way. Any questions? We'd love to answer questions.
Where do you get the dogs from?
The dogs are property of Guide Dogs for the Blind. Guide Dogs for the Blind has been in operation. It's a nonprofit, no federal funding, since 1942. It started when the veterans from World War II were coming home. And they have a full-time geneticist. We call these designer bred dogs. They are bred for the job, and we just help them get to where they're supposed to be. We like to call ourselves the kindergarten teachers.
Thank you very much.
I have one question for you.
Uh-huh.
Have you heard of any groups or associations or organizations that have done a public-private partnership with the city to fund anything that
You
would
know,
assist?
these dogs come from San Rafael, California, and we are up at their campus quite a bit. We go there for graduation. And at the corners around them, they all have these audible
Signals.
yeah, and I'm sure many of these people here can vouch for that system. And as a sighted person, they're helpful too, because oftentimes you're sitting there talking to a friend and you're not paying attention.
Or
So-
texting.
Pardon?
Or texting.
Well, see thank you for saying that, because texting is another problem
Absolutely.
for all of us, not just the visually impaired, because people are not paying attention. Whether they are walking or they're driving, they're not paying attention.
Well, I guess for everyone in the audience too, if you guys have any organizations or groups, I'd love to hear from you that might be looking to possibly, explore that avenue. I know the city does, do tree donations and such, and I think it would be worthwhile looking at and bringing it to staff.
Well, I think one of the suggestions was a walk, and I know our puppy club would get very much behind
That's a
a
good
walk
idea.
here. So support it. I know there's a walk every June. I think it's the first weekend in June at Anaheim. It's for the Foundation Fighting Blindness, and they raise quite a bit of money there. But they're from all over Orange County. So, but if your city sponsored one, you would have our support to be walking with our puppies.
Thank you very much.
Tina Wilson.
Just right here. Okay, fine. Burnham, sit. Thank you for letting me speak for just a couple of minutes.
You're welcome.
I'm here with my guide dog Barnum to be of support. And I actually have used the audible signals living in Irvine. I don't live there anymore, but I lived at the corner of Barranca and West Yale Loop. And when I think about how much traffic there is now, no matter where you are, in comparison to the kind of traffic you had maybe 10 years ago, and then somebody also mentioned that the cars are quieter now. You have a lot of your turning lanes. For me, when I used to be able to cross with the audible signal, it gave me a lot more confidence being a totally blind person crossing a street. I wasn't worried about, is it really time to cross now? Because we always have to be listening to our traffic, no matter what. But the audible signal, which I was really impressed about also, is that it would do a countdown. It would say walk. It would actually, there would be a voice saying walk 2120. As you're crossing the street, it would do a countdown. And I know a lot of people, somebody had mentioned noise pollution. There was a way to, if people wanted it softer at certain times of day, you could turn it down and then turn it up again. But all I can say is, for me, it gave me a lot of confidence and made my travel so much easier and safer.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Marianne Barrios.
There's a podium right here, and then the microphone's right there.
Okay.
Stand until you turn down.
Okay. I am Marianne Barrios. I live in Lake Forest. I live at the Timbers at Rockfield and Ridge Route. Rockfield is a really, really busy street, as anybody in Lake Forest will tell you. I won't cross that street. I have to stay on my side. It's because of, I can't tell when to cross. I used to have some vision, now I have no vision. I can't cross without an audible signal. It's just a safety thing. Traffic has gotten, like Tina said, there is a lot more traffic now than when I first moved to Lake Forest. I've lived here for 24 years, and it goes much faster. There's a lot more. I used to walk a lot. I don't walk anymore. I used to be able to walk up to the park that now is Veterans Park. I can't go there now. I shop at Albertsons. I can't go there by myself. Again, it's dangerous. It's too dangerous. I can't do it unless somebody goes with me. So I can't be independent. I can't go by myself across Rockfield or across Muirlands. and certainly not across El Toro. That's impossible. That street is so busy, and with the shopping centers and cars going in and out every which way, there's no way that anybody with no vision can walk around in that area safely. So, yes, the signals do need to talk though, so that you know that so I would know, how much time I have, so that I wouldn't walk too slowly or not pay attention and not start walking soon enough. Or when it's yellow, I need to know when not to walk. And so just the signals that make noises are not good enough. They need to talk. And so, it would make my life easier and more fun if I could walk more and could actually cross Rockfield and Muirlands rather than just stay on my side of where the Timbers is on Ridge Route and Rockfield.
Ma'am, have you ever crossed at an audible crossing signal?
I have at the airport.
Okay.
So, and that has a countdown, and that is great because you know, as it goes in descending order, you know that you better keep walking. Keep walking. Don't stop in the middle. So, and I've my sister lives in Las Vegas, and I think they have them in Las Vegas too. I think I've done that. So, and there's been that really in Orange County. That's the one I remember most, is the one at the airport.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your comments.
Leon Myers.
Good evening. I'm an orientation and mobility specialist, meaning I teach individuals how to get around, to orient themselves and be mobile, who are blind or visually impaired. There's a lot of my students out there. I've been doing this for 35 years, and I've been in South County the whole time. I've seen Lake Forest grow. I've seen the congestion of the traffic. I get to see individuals when they have an accessible signal. I know the difference. It makes a huge difference for them. And you know what? It's not just for those who are visually impaired and blind. You talked about those who are texting. I'm one who am actually out on the streets, crossing the streets. I watch. We have stupid pedestrians. They need to be reminded. So when that auditory signal, the accessible signal goes off and it says, El Toro, the walk sign is on to cross, 17, 16, and it goes on down, is wonderful. I just see people, it's like, bing. There are cities that have them. There's Irvine, there's Mission Viejo, there's Huntington Beach. In Mission Viejo and Irvine, it's by request. Anytime a student, well, they're students for me, they would be citizens for you, comes up and requests, it goes in. This is the ADA compliance. They make a huge difference. It is hard, especially getting harder to cross these streets. You guys have some streets that are 12 lanes wide. Imagine not being able to see a thing, and you have to step out in front of these cars that sometimes you can't even hear. Because nowadays, it's not just the hybrid cars and your electric cars, your high-end cars, you can barely hear. And then some of them turn off when they're there. So it's like, and then it's like, how do you know when to start? My job has changed tremendously from when I started, because with combustible engines, it was easy to hear the cars and get going. That's not so true anymore. what I do is I teach, and I teach not just individuals how to use the white cane, I also teach them how to use their dogs when they come back home. So many of them, we work with routes that are difficult. And sometimes what I have to tell them is that you need to go before your city council and tell them you need an accessible signal. And by the ADA law, that should come in. So, anyways, I really appreciate your time. Lake Forest truly is a wonderful community. Your sidewalks are great. It's just the crossings. That's the problem. So anyways, thank you for your time. Do you have any questions about orientation mobility, what that might be?
You made a comment about they're on request. What does that mean?
That means that but the ADA law states is that if someone comes to the city council and states that they need a accessible signal at a certain intersection, that it should go in. That's the first important, when you look into, I believe I have the same report you do. The very first thing is the request. That's the first priority right there. Potential demand for accessible signals, a request for accessible pedestrian signals, traffic volumes, and it goes on. I mean, the list is huge, so yeah. But it's something I've done in the past with LA. So, yeah.
Lee and I just want to say thanks for your service. I think
Oh.
you have an outstanding profession to be able to have such a good impact on everybody, and they
Yeah.
definitely can have a little bit more freedom than they did before because of what you do. So 35 years is awesome, and just, having
I'm
that
very
passion
blessed.
is really great.
I am. I'm blessed. Okay, thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
for
so
what you do.
much.
Any others?
Yes, Jeanne Rudy.
Okay, straight ahead. Here, okay. And the microphone is right there.
Okay. And where's this light? Oh. Okay. Hi, my name's Jeannie Rudy, and while I don't live in Lake Forest, I visit Lake Forest a lot. I actually live in Laguna Woods Village, and I am one of the Yan students. I have a dual challenge. I have what if most people think of Helen Keller. So what I have is Usher syndrome. So I have not only a blindness, but a deafness. So the audible signals that the residents are acting, they're also acting for vibration, because being hearing impaired, I don't hear where the traffic's really coming from a lot. And then being visually impaired, while I still have, I'm legally blind, but I still have some acuity, but my field of vision is 1%. So between your two eyes, that's 20%. So just narrow that down to 1%. I'm not necessarily going to see or hear a car. You asked about cities with those signals. Because I live in Laguna Woods Village, they take us on their village bus system sometimes to Aliso Viejo Town Center. And there is a street, I believe it's called Enterprise, between the Trader Joe's and the IMAX Theater. And that's an audible signal. I go out of my way to cross there because I can still hear that one. I don't know if it has the vibration because I wasn't aware of that, but it does tell you you can cross, wait, okay, cross. And then, like Leanne says, it has a signal countdown. That's wonderful. So if you want to go and see that one, go. And that's all I can say. I like coming to Lake Forest. I do a lot of things in the Lake Forest community. And it would be nice to keep my independence while I still have vision and hearing to have those audible signals. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Thank you for giving us that example on Enterprise, too.
Valerie Ormont.
I will pass.
Okay. Jeff Singh. Singy.
All right, my name is Jeff Sengi. I'm here with my guide dog Waldorf, who was raised here in Orange County by these great folks from VIP3. He's my third guide dog, and the reason I use a guide dog is I appreciate and respect the idea I have my independence. I'll try to be short and sweet. I worked at Cal State Fullerton for 22 years, educating faculty and staff on the importance of providing accessibility for everybody. And part of what I used to speak to them about was don't think of it just in terms of students. Think of it in terms of yourself. There's three things I used to emphasize in my position there in working with faculty and staff in terms of accessibility. And those are, number one, think of it in terms of doing it because it's the right thing to do. And the gentleman on the board who said every city should be accessible, you're right on that idea. It's the right thing to do. Second, because it's the law. There is the Americans with Disabilities Act, which provides equal access to programs, services, and activities for people with disabilities. And I know when I worked at the university, which is part of a big university system, which is part of the state, when I was asked the question on a number of occasions, well, we can't really afford to do this. You know, it's unreasonable. There is that part of the law that says if it's unreasonable, you know, you might not have to do it. Well, when push came to shove and complaints were filed and the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights got involved and did an evaluation of this, they said their findings showed that there was negligence in terms of accessibility. And the idea of using the reason that it's an unreasonable expense or it's too expensive to do this, they determined that went all the way to the general fund of the state of California. So if you're going to use some kind of rationale that says, oh, we can't afford to do this, that precedent has been determined that you got to look further than your own budget. Maybe you might have to look at the entire city budget. I don't know those things, but I do know there is a lot of activity going on in this area in terms of affordability and what should be done. So number one, do it because it's the right thing. Number two, do it because it's the law. Number three, do it for yourself. And you're all probably sitting there thinking, what's that have to do with me? A lot of the people out here didn't used to need audible signals. Anybody up here could be Leanne's next student. I'm not wishing that on anybody. But what I'm saying is you never know how this is going to impact you. You think, well, this doesn't apply to me. Well, maybe it doesn't right now, but maybe it will to you over age, family members, neighbors, friends, etc. So the three things I'll emphasize again: the right thing to do it because it's the law, and do it for yourself. And I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
Well, thank you very much for your comments. Very good ones.
Paul Brennan.
Okay, you got a podium right here in front of you. Okay, you got a microphone. Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Welcome.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Can I go? Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak. I thought what I would do is just share a quick story with you to try and emphasize what a benefit accessible traffic signals can be. Obviously, you can see here I'm a guide dog user. All of us here that have guide dogs go for 2 weeks of training in Northern California. And we walk a route in San Rafael for a week, the same route, and then during the second week, we branch out and go into San Francisco where things are a little more challenging. approximately 72 hours after I got my dog Jeremiah, I was with a trainer walking across a traffic light that was actually not audible. But when my trainer said, okay, you can go, I told my dog forward, and he went. And halfway through the intersection, a car was coming in the same direction I was and didn't see, wasn't paying attention, and basically made a left-hand turn right in front of me. So Jeremiah stopped immediately, and I was probably about 4 or 5 feet looking in the driver's window of that car, and of course the person probably realized what they'd almost done and took off. So my point in telling you that story is that any advantage that a person with vision loss can have crossing an intersection is a huge benefit. So if we have a signal that will announce, vibrate, telling us it's safe to cross, that helps a lot. But a guide dog's work doesn't just stop there, because as you know, we use traffic signals to control the flow of traffic, and not everybody follows those rules. And what happened to me was a very good example of what can happen even when the cards are stacked in your favor. I had a guide dog trainer literally on my shoulder that has probably 30 years of experience, and Jeremiah is the one that actually saw the car even before my trainer did. So, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was only 2 or 3 days into my training, and when I got to the curb on the other side of the street, she said, "You better get down and thank that dog because he just saved your bacon." So I want to leave you with that story. I think it's a good example. I am not a resident of Lake Forest, but I do provide services to visually impaired seniors all over Orange County. I work for an organization that supports the idea that Jeff just mentioned, that is, people with disabilities have the right to have equal access to participate in the community. And certainly traffic intersections are a big part of that. Also wanted to add that I know down where I live, which is Capistrano, our neighboring city, Dana Point, has 2 audible signals that I know of at this point. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time.
And lastly, we have Melinda Wolf.
Okay. Hello, good evening.
Hello
Thank
again.
Hello again. It's nice to see everybody. I wish I could. You know, that brought up a point. I actually started losing my vision when I was 42 years old. I planned on being a school teacher, went to college, got married, raising kids, stepkids, and all of a sudden I realized when I was on actually Trabuco in El Toro, I couldn't see the signals anymore, and that's when I found out I had retinitis pigmentosa. That changed my life. Actually, it's a blessing. But today I'm here to educate you. I have some information regarding best practices with the audible pedestrian signals. I thought this might be useful. So I have copies. I don't know how many of you are there? 1, 2, 3, how many?
There's 5 of us, plus 2 staff members, 3.
Is that enough? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
They can also email those to us separately also.
I could also email them to you.
They'll take care of it.
Okay.
Staff will take care of it.
Okay, thank you. I just thought I did some research because when I spoke to other people in other communities, I found out that they could just, like for instance, my friend Annie, she's in Washington, a small town, she could just ask her city for an audible signal and within a couple weeks, it happened. I've been asking for an audible signal, maybe you don't know this because I was talking to city council a couple years back, for over 2 years. And I just want you to know that. And I've been patient, but I do want to just reiterate that it is important. It is life-changing to be independent. My friends who cannot cross the street to go to Albertsons and have to pay somebody $20 to take them shopping, it just doesn't seem like that's quite fair. It's not like we're asking a lot, just a little consideration. It is the law, and I would like to participate in any kind of research if you have to do some research and if we do a trial signal, to participate in using it. For instance, in Huntington Beach, I took the bus to Huntington Beach because I'm brave. I get off the bus, and the bus driver brought me to the other side, the beach side of Beach Bowl or PCH. I thought to myself, "Oh no, how am I going to cross the street? No audible signal." I went to the intersection, and boom, audible signal. And you know, my fear left. I mean, it was just like I just felt like I was on top of the world, and I could cross, you know, PCH all by myself. I felt so proud of myself. It's these little things that, you know, make you so you don't get into a depression or go to your house and just decide you can't go out in public. And so I just want to share that with you, and I appreciate all your consideration and your time. I know I've been taking up a lot of your time, and I thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Appreciate all of you coming, all of your comments. They were very, very helpful to us, frankly. So thank you for coming. It's very appreciated. So Commissioner, comments, suggestions, or questions?
I have a few. I also want to echo that. Thanks for coming down here. I think you guys are a great group of people, and not only do you guys have challenges that you face every day, but then you have to have the challenge to have to fight for access and mobility across just the day-to-day. So thanks for coming down and taking the time with us to share that. I think it's important. I'd like to maybe see if it's possible or solicit the idea of maybe looking at those cities. I wrote down Irvine, Mission Viejo, Huntington Beach, Aliso Viejo, Dana Point, John Wayne Airport, and maybe contacting, I don't know if the engineering community has a listserv or maybe some sense to see if they got any different grants that maybe could enlighten us in a different direction. I know sometimes the collaboration amongst the group might have a different idea of how they access the money. I don't know what route we would take to possibly get to this level, but I'd like to see maybe some type of suggestion to City Council at mid-year savings to see if they would consider if there's funding available at mid-year savings to fund one or two throughout moving forward, especially since the CIP is already done, and at least have that on record and put that on their mid-year report so that they can have a look at it each time it comes available and maybe start doing it that way as well. I think that's it for now.
John? Benjamin?
Thanks so much for coming. I know it takes a lot of challenge to come on all the way down here. I used to use walking can in wheelchair. I understand that the need of mobility and accessibility for a lot of folks. And pretty much second what Commissioner Wilwark said, that we probably need some long-term plan to bring this solution to hopefully entire city, or at least the major junction in City of Lake Forest here. Because in the end, I believe in a suburban setting, the air pollution is not that significant to the residential concerns. So this accessibility will bring a lot of people, you know, and put life to chairs and potentially, you know, increase some traffic safety as well. And thank you again for coming.
So the money that we spend on the ADA access ramps on the intersections, is that CBDG funds? So that pot of possible money is another source that you mentioned previously for a pilot program that we could do possibly, right? So what can we do to help? I guess that's my question. Are you going to come back to us with that, or do you need us to put a request in to you or the council, or what do we need to do? Or what can we do to help?
I think from staff's perspective, we're certainly looking. We have a request before us that we are looking to respond to, and working with Ms. Wolf in terms of some of her areas of concern. So we're moving forward with that, and this is part of that moving forward process. As Tom pointed out, obviously this is a council-directed funding opportunity for us, and we've got a few things that we would have to look at. We only kind of came up with this in the last week as a potential, but we have to pursue that potential to see whether or not it bears fruit in any way. So I think we've got direction certainly from the commission in terms of what you would like to see staff do, and we are certainly pursuing and following up with our resident out here in terms of these specific requests. We can certainly keep the commission updated on the progress, but I think we have everything we need at this moment to kind of keep moving forward on this.
Okay.
And Mr. Rogers, if we wanted to, as a commission, I don't even know if we're allowed to on this educational item, but have some recommendation to council to get before council, is that done annually? I guess I'm confused on how that process works here. Are we currently only allowed to push recommendations once a year to council in a package?
It is part of the council's process that they have in place, that each commission has an opportunity once per year to go before them and speak to perhaps some of the accomplishments of the commission, but also if there were any things that came up during this period of time between presentations or to the council in terms of where the commission would like to see either direction given back so they could then go look at things, or to have direct requests to the council. But that is correct. That is the appropriate opportunity for this commission as well as all the others to make.
I think our annual report is in October this time, right? They changed that a few months ago. They had a discussion. I think it's October.
I made a note to double check that because they changed something. It used to be February, kind of after the new commissions get set. So I made a note to just check whatever that is, because something changed. But also the other time would be when and if this gets agendized to council. Then it's an actual item that council would be working on, and you could opine and give your opinions then also.
But to speak on behalf of it or to endorse it as a commission, if the recommendation was to go to council, right, if this item goes there either for a grant or to implement some of theirs, to have a commission endorse the recommendation, would we have that ability without making some type of motion here tonight? Or because how does that work? Or would we all just be as individuals speaking?
Certainly, as individuals, you can speak. This is an educational item, so there's nothing before you to vote on tonight. We're moving forward. So at some point in time, we have to work out how this will move forward, whether it's a mid-year CIP, earlier, next year's CIP, whatever. So the CIP things come back through the commission, typically. So we'll see. You'll have the opportunity. We'll have to figure that out as we go. But we are moving forward. This is an important topic. This is great that we get so many people out here.
I think the
looking forward
commissioners
to it.
just want to voice support for this as whenever.
I'm certainly hearing
as soon
that.
as it
Yes.
comes, I guess that's the point.
Yes, we will work with the commission and let you know however best that works.
And since it's ADA related, I feel a little compelled. We put things into the next CIP and try to identify the portion of all the area in the city of Lake Forest, whether we want to have some planning for the next improvement there, and maybe can, hopefully put the things during the next cycle of the installation.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments or anything? Okay. Again, thank you all in the audience for coming. Things move a little slowly than we all want sometimes, but it will move. So thank you all for coming. Next item on our agenda, traffic manager's report. Any report, Dave, other than?
Nothing specific at this time, no.
Okay. Next will be commissioner comments. Commissioner James? No comment. Commissioner Pequeno?
Yes, once again, staff, I'm very impressed with you. As a matter of fact, just had a conversation with the former chief, Valentine, my new boss. I was telling him how I'm very impressed. And for you that came today, God bless you. It's going to happen. Just please be patient with the city. And thanks again, staff.
Mr. Yu?
Thank you so much for staff prepare a very comprehensive study and for us, and I think all commissioners here got a pretty good understanding of the issue here. We just have to move one step at a time, and thank you so much for the audience as well, and we really got what you need here, and we're really working on it. Thank you.
Co-Chair in Vilwalk?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank staff for taking the time on Lavaca as well to send that secondary letter. I think that shows a lot, and that's so important. I think it saves us all time because down the line that those streets would come back. So I'm glad we're giving that one more notice. I think it will benefit us on the back end. So I appreciate that. I also wanted to mention that earlier in August, when Irvine had their massive power outage, I was actually called into their emergency operations center as their emergency manager was gone and assisted with their operation. And their city had 52 intersections that were taken offline because of the outage. The outage lasted about 36 hours. Them, like Lake Forest, they maintain their own traffic signals and are responsible for it. They have a plan in place, and that they were able to bring out generators and to bring back their key critical signals up into, they were able to distribute stop signs and traffic signals as such to try to prevent it. They had some accidents that were involved as well. It was obviously a big event for them, but I guess I would hope and just urge that we have something similar in place, that power outages, especially with the public safety power shutoffs that they're proposing because of the wildfire, we have a few circuits in Lake Forest, that there is the possibility that traffic signals can be taken offline, and that, while my evacuation plan hasn't really been moving too far, I think it's also important for us to look at traffic safety when it gets to that point, because it's inevitable that working with those companies that this is going to happen, and that I'm concerned that we might not have that in place to maybe respond in an appropriate sense to make sure that our streets remain safe during those critical power outage times. So that's my comments.
Okay. And again, thank you, staff. Good information tonight. I think it's very helpful to educate us on the possibilities of many, many, many things. And I just wanted to ask also, is I've noticed on Bake and Lake Forest, are they repairing the streets from the Verizon project? Is that what the patches are? When Bake Parkway has them coming all the way up?
Yes. Yeah, they've been tearing up all sorts of streets around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is the street then going to get resurfaced, or just the patches?
Just those patches, and then we allow them to tear up about like 10 streets at a time, then they'll move on, and just the demand for internet services is huge, as we all know. No.
So are they pretty well done? No? More streets, huh? Oh, God. Okay. All right. Hearing. Phase 1. Hearing no other questions, then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Jim, great job.
Thanks, Bud.
I hate to tell you this, but I'm not going to think about you guys at all this weekend.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Alaska.
Oh, that's right. You're going fishing.
Don't catch anything.
Hey, have your trip. Enjoy.
Yes.
Hope you catch lots of fish.
Yes.
All right. Counting on you.
We'll be thinking of you. Don't do anything stupid.
Yeah, I won't.